just cryptocurrency, but any transaction that would require an independent third party to verify and trust, an escrow company, a government, a bank, you can now do those transactions peer-to-peer without the interference of that third party. So it really will disintermediate and make these transactions more efficient. To date, other than on the illicit market, they haven't really interacted too much with the cannabis space. There have been some efforts to use them to track inventory, although I don't think that's necessary. This isn't nuclear waste that we're talking about. It's just cannabis. But I do think that it is bringing the entire world closer together and making, the central banks of the world slightly less necessary, and upending that power structure, I think, is good for the things that we know are right but are facing resistance from the government, like cannabis and psychedelics.
That's a very interesting perspective, especially given the sort of changes that I think we all feel in terms of looking at money and the central bank. And, that's basically the power infrastructure of the U.S. government. So if you're able to take away the, central bank or the need for a central bank and move towards digital assets, it has some potential far-reaching consequences, right?
Yeah, it does. And, I'm certainly not here to suggest that we need to upend everything. But if the central banks just merely adopt it as a protocol, it'll be better for everybody involved. I mean, you can transfer money to your cousin in Mexico without having to wait 10 days and, take $10 in fees out along the way. And it's our money. We shouldn't have to give it to somebody else just to send it.
Right. And I started thinking about today, we had this discussion about money, paper money, and less. I mean, I have some money in my pocket. I can't even figure out when I want to give it away. I'm using my phone. I'm using my Venmo. We're already pretty digital. So it's an interesting discussion. I think it's, we can only philosophize about it. There's no real answer to it. You can prognosticate into the future, but that's not necessarily valid. But we do feel the move of the sidewalk is moving, and we've got to walk with it or get stuck. I think that's very, very apparent. Let me ask you a question because of the law on the regulatory landscape for cannabis. It's constantly changing. How do you stay ahead of the changes and the work that you do? And what advice would you give to businesses that are looking to navigate the complex environment?
Yeah, I think it's impossible to stay ahead of it because it really does change on a daily basis. I think the most important thing is being nimble and able to pivot quickly, and try to look a little bit ahead on decisions you're making and make sure that they can be adaptable to changing regulations. Right, like don't order $500,000 worth of packaging if you think the labeling regulations are in flux or haven't been interpreted yet. I mean, even if the regulation stays the same, the way that the regulating body interprets that or enforces it changes all the time from regulator to regulator. We could have one of my clients would have an inspection one day and they'd say one thing and they'd say something else to one of my other clients the next day. So